Hey, y'all, I'm Kim Stewart, host of the Book Marketing Mania podcast, and I'm so glad you're tuning in today. Today, I'm so thrilled to welcome my friend Yvette Walker to the podcast. Yvette is the author of the devotional Whispering in His Ear, a month of joyful conversations with God. And Yvette is also host of the Positively Joy podcast. I discovered her podcast last year and was so happy to meet her in person at the Spark Conference 2021 and get to hug her neck again last month at Spark 2022. Yvette celebrated her 100th episode a while back and also spoke at the huge conference Podcast Movement earlier this month. God has her doing big things, and she always does them with lots of joy in her heart for serving others. So today you're going to hear Yvette share about her new devotional, of course, the creative things she's doing to meet new readers and market her message, including collaborations with others on Instagram Live and Clubhouse. Plus, as a podcast host, you're going to get to hear her share some tips about pitching to be a guest on her show and other podcasts to market your book. And she's going to share her experience using Podmatch, a service for finding guests for your show and shows for you to guest on. Y'all know we don't call it Book Marketing Mania for nothing, so let's get to it. Hey, Yvette, welcome to the Book Marketing Mania podcast. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you so much, Kim, for having me. I am really happy that we were able to do this.
Me too. So everybody heard me gush about you in our introduction, but I would love for you just to start out by telling us a little bit about your devotional, Whispering in His Ear, and who your target readers are.
Absolutely. So it is maybe called a traditional devotional where we have basically a narrative, a life lesson that I'm sharing that the Lord has given me, an exercise to do, and a prayer. But a prayer in the form of a conversation, because that's really what I wanted to be. The impetus of the book was that over the years, I felt like I really wasn't hearing from God anymore. And it made me really sad. And I kind of went on a journey to try to find out, was it me? Was I not worthy for him to talk to me anymore? Because when I was a little girl and growing up in church and, Catholic school and the whole deal, I remember being in church and hearing from him and it just having a wonderful relationship. And then I grew up, became an adult, and as we tend to do, get busy in the world. And that kind of stopped. And so the story is a long one, but I mean, that's really why I wanted to write the book, and also wanted to share how God is literally every day with us, even in the smallest situations. And I would say my target audience is, really, I think anyone could get something out of it, but probably Christian women 35 and above.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. I love, I love it. I appreciate you sending me a copy of it. And of course I had to order my, one on Kindle too, because I'm such an ebook reader, and it's so fun to be able to gift that to friends, that maybe need a little encouragement from God's word. So I'm so thankful you wrote Whispering in His Ear. And I know that's something that, all of us women seem to struggle with over time, right? We think we've got a really great relationship going, and then something seems to get in the way or distract us. And then we do kind of start wondering, especially as authors, are we still hearing from God? Is He still guiding us in the right direction of, are we supposed to be writing books, or how do we market these books, and how do we reach our target readers? So I'm so glad that you can talk to us today about that. And as y'all heard again in the introduction, Yvette is all about joy, her Positively Joy podcast, as well as this devotional. That's just her heart to share the joy we can find in God's word. And so Yvette, I would love for you just to share anything that's kind of burning on your heart from your devotional that can encourage our listeners today.
Absolutely. And I just have to say that I think everything that I talk about, I hope that there's a connection. The thing about joy, the Lord told me to do a podcast about joy. Funny thing is, I was going to start a podcast about what I like to call the intersection of beauty, hair, and politics. I know, crazy, but it was really fun. And the Lord said, yeah, no, that's good. But no, we're going to do one on joy, because we are not walking in our joy with Him. Mm-hmm. So through whatever I do, the podcast, the book, I'm writing Christian lyrics. I'm not a musician, mm-hmm. but anything that I do, I really want the message to come through. And so the book is, as I said, a series of life lessons, and from a larger, more, I guess what I'm trying to say, heady discussion to, hearing from him and speaking to him and how to get that back, to the smallest thing, such as going to the post office. So in one of the life lessons, I was getting ready for a pretty busy Saturday. I had 2 back-to-back events. One was a prayer breakfast, and one was a kind of a video shoot that my church was doing. So I knew that I had to have everything organized. I had because I had changes of clothing, right? So I had everything organized, ready to go. I literally had to walk out the door. So I'm in the car, I'm about 20 minutes away from the house, and I realized that I have left a bag. And I seriously cannot believe that this has happened. Literally, all you had to do was grab the bag and walk out the door. And I just kind of started beating myself up. I just like, why did this happen? I'm turning the car around, I'm going back home, and I'm realizing, okay, so I'm going to miss one of these things, but okay, we're going to do it. And then I happened to look over in the passenger seat, and there's a letter that I had written a week before that I had not mailed yet. And so it was a letter to journalists in Australia who were covering the very, very horrific wildfires at the time. This was in probably 2019. And I wrote an encouraging letter with scripture and tried to inspire them to continue to do their good work, but also know that God was walking with them, right? So I'd written this letter. I had forgotten, my week had gotten busy, forgotten to mail it. I looked over at the letter and I'm like, you want me to go mail that letter, don't you? Okay. So I had just enough time to go back and get the bag that I needed for the second thing I needed to do that day and make time to go to the post office. And I truly believe that he rerouted my day that day simply because he wanted me to go to the post office and mail that letter. Now, there's no way for me to know if that letter made an impact, if it did at all, what kind of an impact that it made. I don't know. Did it lead someone closer to Christ? There's no way for me to know that. I'll never know that. But that's okay. It was just I need to do his will. And so that seems like a very small thing. A lot of people would say, no, that's just a coincidence. But no, I don't believe that. He wanted me to kind of upset my day and do what I needed to do and go mail this letter. And I felt that clearly come into my spirit. And I think it's about being open and willing to look for those opportunities to be close to him. And so that's what a lot of the chapters are about.
Yeah, I love that because, especially as authors, there's so many things that happen like that, or we kind of get our mindset on certain ways we're going to market our book or reach out to our target readers. But then I think about, sometimes you hear from somebody like on Instagram, or you hear from somebody on your email list, or somebody reaches out to you out of the blue. Maybe they've come across your podcast and your blog or something, and sometimes we don't always take time to think that could be him, right? He could be reaching out through these people and wanting us to speak life into them and share our messages with them. But we get so busy, doing so many other things that we sometimes don't take time to do that. So I love it. Just definitely being aware of that. It's so hard, right? Just being aware that that's maybe him speaking into us. And you don't always know the impact you make. Like I know you've talked about through your podcast, just all the different countries you're reaching your listeners in. And it's so amazing. Like you just don't know, right? You just don't know who might be reading your words or who might be listening to your words on your podcast and the difference you make in their life. And we just have to be obedient and keep showing up and letting him whisper in our ears for sure. So I love that from your devotional,
absolutely.
Yvette.
Yeah, absolutely. And for example, I talked to a woman who's running a mission in Zimbabwe, and then a woman I know at church. I mean, I know her, but I didn't know that she was from Zimbabwe. She came up to me and she's like, "Oh my goodness, I'm from Zimbabwe, and I just heard that podcast, and I love the work that they're doing." I had no idea.
Wow.
So
yeah.
You don't know. You don't know.
Yeah, that's so true. So, hey, tell us, as a fellow author of my listeners, what are you doing right now to meet new readers? Because when did your devotional release?
So the devotional released in November.
Okay. So tell us how you've been meeting new readers before your book release and after.
Well, and I would say all my readers are new readers because I'm a first-time faith author. So I'm a writer. I've been a journalist for, 30 years, and I have written a book before that was actually about hair and beauty.
Oh, yeah.
But this is the first faith faith-filled book that I've written. So yeah, all readers are new readers. And so it is frustrating. So I know we say, okay, we are going to try to reach out to everybody in our network. The friends and family thing, I think we all know now that it's really nice if they support us, but we can't just rely on friends and family. We have to try to find a wider network than that. So I think most of us understand that now. We may start with them, but we know that there definitely has to be more. So I have a podcast, so obviously I'm using that. And sometimes I realize I need to use that more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, actually, you have a channel. You need to kind of use that more. Also, the people that are on my email list, as you said, social media. But one thing that I have been doing, and really, I'm trying to make it an organic or as organic as possible, because when I'm reaching out to people, yes, I have a message to tell them. I am selling a product, absolutely. But I still want to do it in a way that I feel like they would appreciate and they will feel honored by. And so recently I've been reaching out to people who I know have big networks of their own. And I have been trying to, send them, actually gift them with a copy of the book. And I say, I hope this blesses you, and do whatever, read it and do whatever you think is appropriate. If you would like to share it with your network, that's great. If God tells you to do it. And so I've been doing that. I had a great conversation just this week on the podcast with LaQuisha Hall, who is an artist and a crafter and a Bible journaler. And she, I sent her happy mail. What we in the crafting world like to call happy mail.
Uh-huh.
It's where you will send a package with just cool stuff in it, like crafts that you've made, little trinkets, or really whatever. And so I made up a piece of happy mail for LaQuisha. I gave her a copy of the book, and I gave her some things I had crafted, and a lovely letter and everything. And she definitely is someone that I look up to in the crafting world, love what she does. I'm not an artist. And so she's like, no, don't say that. Yes, you are. She's very big encourager. So I reached out to her. We had a wonderful podcast episode and an Instagram live just this week. Where we had great interaction with people who were commenting on her network. It was probably the best Instagram live I've had. So I think if there are people that that would appreciate the book, and again, not in a real pushy, salesy way, I created a piece of happy mail. That's what we do in the crafting world. So I applied what we would normally do, but I put the book in there. Mm-hmm. If there's a network or a person, an influencer that you look up to in a group, or in an area or subject or topic, or hobbyist, that would make sense for you to reach out to, do that, and do that in the way that they would appreciate it. I think that's why LaQuisha wanted to do the podcast episode with me and the Instagram live, where she basically did an unboxing of my box to her.
Oh, yeah.
Which I really appreciated that she did that. She didn't have to do that.
Uh-huh.
And again, it didn't seem pushy or salesy to her network, because this is what we do in the crafting world. We send happy mail, and she unboxes a lot of things. So I think we have to think about that. Think about how we are going to reach out to people, how we are going to address people in their world. We need to, as Jesus always did, he met people where they were, right? Mm-hmm. So we need to meet people where they are and encourage them. I think you might be interested in my book. I'd love to gift you with a copy. Or if there's a way you can send them a digital download, gifting everybody with a copy, I know may be cost prohibitive. So maybe there's another way to do it. But meet them where they are in a way that they would appreciate what you're sending them. And we are maybe taking a risk, but I think we have to take a risk really in all things. If we buy advertising, which I really haven't done yet, yes, we are investing in something, but we are taking a risk. We don't know what that will yield. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to think about those kinds of things, do what we can to meet people where they are. And, it might happen, it might not happen, but in many cases, I think you'll have a good outcome.
Yeah, that's so good. I love how you're so collaborative, Yvette. I mean, whether it's just having guests on your podcast, or I know you've gone live just like that, the Instagram live. I know you went live with a couple other authors when you released your book on Facebook Live, and you're also doing some things on Clubhouse too, right? I know I've seen you on there as well.
Yes, and this is I think it's interesting to talk about audience. So yes, so I have a Clubhouse room. It is called the House of Joy. We talk weekly. This season or this year, it's all about scripture. So
Mm-hmm.
every week we are taking a scripture. This week, today, in fact, we're talking on a Friday. It's Galatians chapter 2. But it's interesting because not all of my readers or not everybody in my network is on Clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
But yet I may come into an opportunity to meet new people and meet new readers or just new people who might be interested in the podcast. So again, is it risk? Is this a for sure thing? No, but I know that Clubhouse is a very important, relatively new social audio tool. A lot of people are using it. A lot of Christians and faith-based authors and podcasters are on Clubhouse. So I felt like I needed to be there. And I will tell you one story. I work full time. I'm kind of busy, so I'm not able to be on Clubhouse a lot, which is how you kind of generate your audience on Clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were a couple of rooms where, I wasn't getting like a ton of people. Some rooms can have hundreds of people in them, mostly just listening. I was just having a few people, and I began to say, Lord, I can't do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'm not going to do this Clubhouse room anymore, which basically is not salesy for the book, but it's basically my brand. It's people getting to know me, and then they can find out what I'm doing, right? And the one day that I thought was going to be my last, we were talking about The Chosen. I'm a big fan of The Chosen TV show. And Dallas Jenkins, the creator of The Chosen, popped into my Clubhouse room.
Oh, wow.
Now, I had met him at an NRB conference, but he didn't know me from Adam. He talks to a lot of people. But someone told him, hey, they're talking about The Chosen over on Clubhouse. He popped in. When I saw his name, I was like, okay, so who's this guy who's claiming to be Dallas Jenkins? But when I heard his voice, it really was him. So I was like, okay, Lord, this is pretty unusual. I think you're telling me to stick with this. And so I think that as authors, we are trying to find a way to market. And for many, advertising campaigns are going to work. For me, that's not in my budget right now to really do a full blast. So I'm trying to be creative and think of some different ways to get to know people. And also through some of the things I'm already doing. Yes, is it extra effort to do the Clubhouse room? It's fun. We have a great time. I mean, the conversation is awesome. And I've actually started recording it and using some of it on the podcast because it's such a great conversation, right? But if you had asked me if I was going to make this kind of a part of my brand, let's say, 6 or 7 months ago, I would have said no, because, that just isn't something I thought I would do. But he provides opportunities, and we have to look at those opportunities and see, okay, how can it make sense for us to use the opportunities that he is giving us to incorporate our brand into this and perhaps, market our book this way.
Yeah, it's so great that everything is so aligned with your brand. And I know that is something we have to think through, is like, how many platforms can we be on? It's very time consuming. But I think, just like what you just said, it's if you go into it not like, oh, here's another platform I have to post on and spend time on, but you're looking at it as, really wrapping your goals into it. Like, your target audience is there, fellow Christian authors are there, influencers are there. Obviously, everybody loves to listen to your podcast. They love your voice. So why not be on Clubhouse where they get to hear your voice? And like you said, I mean, this is so huge. I know. And it's just been, I think, recent, right? That you could download or record the audio from Clubhouse. Isn't that new?
Yes, it's relatively new. It's called a replay. And what I have been doing and what I need to do in the future is just to be upfront about it. But I've been coming back afterward and asking people for permission. I don't really need to do that, because if they see replay is on, they know it's being recorded. But I think as a Christian woman and an ethical woman, I want to let people know that I might use their voices. So I think I'm going to do that in the front end now. But yes, why would I not use that for my podcast? It's great content. I mean, it's great content. And I mean, it's really good stuff. And it's different kind of content. I do 2 podcasts a week. One is an interview show like this, where it's one-on-one. And the other one is more of a teaching from me. But this Clubhouse content is completely different. It is a conversation with more than one person. And we can laugh, and there's so many brilliant people out there. And if I need to, I can edit it, because it is a file I can download and I can edit it. Or if someone tells me, I want to participate in the room, but I don't want to be on the podcast, then I can always try to do something. So yeah, why wouldn't I use really great content? And I think it's all about providing as much really good content to our readers, our networks. Obviously people are going to buy our books, but we need to be in contact with them between books, right? We need to continue to have a conversation with them, continue to give them good, encouraging, inspirational content that will make them remember us and want to get the next book when it comes out. Or buy more copies and gift them, as you said.
Yeah. Keep talking about the book to their friends. Yeah, that's so powerful, Yvette. Yeah, I love the idea of being able to repurpose that content. I'm big on repurposing, and just, all the different ways you could do that. If you put it on your podcast, or you could break it up and put it on social, and just so many ways to go about that. And I love too that I want to give a shout out that you just passed, well, it's been a while now, your 100th episode, which is huge, especially to a new podcaster like me, that you've just stuck with it consistently, and your listeners just keep showing up and encouraging you to keep on keeping on. And I love that your 100th episode was your listeners calling in to share what brings them joy. And I know I was one of the listeners that got to participate in that. So I'm so thankful for you doing that. But I love that you just are constantly bringing people in, just like the Clubhouse room. You're just, you're opening it up, but you're letting other people come in and share. And then, just letting you repurpose that if possible and share it with more listeners. So it's just so amazing. So I want to ask you, speaking of podcasting, to put your podcasting host hat on and share with us, since we talk a lot about podcast pitching on the podcast, is I would love for you to tell us, as a podcast host, how, how you prefer to be pitched to be a guest on your show, and just 2, what you have seen from pitches, and if you have any recommendations for our listeners if they're wanting to start pitching themselves to podcast.
Absolutely. So it's funny, when you begin, you first think, oh, I'm going to have to find all these people. And in many cases, you do start with your own very insular network. And there could be great people in there too. But it's amazing how people have discovered me, and I am getting more pitches now. And I do use a podcast pitching. It's not software, it's a website. So can we talk about
Absolutely. Yeah. You share. We want to hear all your tips from your host perspective. You bet.
So I do use Podmatch, and I've been using it for a while. Basically, it's a place you can go. There's a free and a paid version where you can sign up as a host and a guest. So I have been a guest on podcasts through this. And also I get lots of pitches. So people will sign up with Podmatch, and maybe there's other ones too, but this is the one that I use, and they will send me a letter. Of course, just like and remember, I'm a journalist. So just like any PR person who'd be trying to pitch a story to me, I always tell people, I need to know what, I call it the nut graph, but really, what is the story about? What is the story that's going to make my listeners really want to tune in? I don't just send me a pitch that said, hey, it sounds like you do really great work. I'd love to be on your podcast. You'd be surprised. There are people who just say that and expect me, I think, to go back and look them up and look at them. And yes, that can happen, but I work full time, so I'm busy and I don't have time to do that. So obviously the best kind of pitching is to tell me as much as you can about who you are and what the story is, or in this case, the book that you've written, and why it would be a great match, or be a line to what I do to Positively Joy. I think it's pretty clear sometimes when people are just kind of batched proposing and they really don't, it's clear that they've never listened to the podcast, or they don't know what I do. So it's very easy to read between those lines. So I think authenticity is important. I think being as complete in the information as you can be is important. Another thing that I'm noticing now, and I've had to so I use Calendly, many of us do, and I had to kind of change the way people could get into the Calendly, because there were people who were just signing up, but I don't know who you are. And all of a sudden I would see something on the Calendly and I'm like, who is this person? And I had to say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to cancel this because we've never even spoken.
Mm-hmm.
We've never emailed to each other. So don't surprise a podcaster that way. Even if there's a loophole where you can do it, don't do that. Definitely get in touch with them and write an enticing letter pitching yourself, your book, because yes, we all need guests if it's a guest show. So we will likely get back to you. Be patient because many of us, I don't batch record. I do a lot of recording throughout my season, but I'm pretty full up for season 3. I'm now beginning to record for season 4. So there may be a time lag between, when your pitch is responded to. So be patient. And if you do, following up is not a bad idea, but don't seem like you're angry in the follow-up, because I've seen that. So, I mean, we're Christian guys. I mean,
right.
Just be nice and be authentic, And then if people do find you, for example, through your website, and that's a great place to be found. So right now, I think I'm finding that people are finding me through the website and not through Podmatch, where I've got my bio and the whole deal, And so they may be finding you through different ways, or maybe just seeing you on social and reaching out to you that way. So they may not, many of us have kind of a packet, either a media kit or somewhere online. If they've missed that, just gently direct them to that if you feel like they need to know more about you before they're doing the pitch. But a lot of us are super busy. A lot of us are not doing this for our only full-time job. So just, give us grace and be patient.
That's great advice for people guesting on podcasts. Cause I know, I mean, I've just seen all kinds of pitches come through. And just being super patient and knowing that, the hosts are super busy, and a lot of y'all, I know of definitely since the pandemic have started batching way ahead of time. And so even if it's not a good fit for right now, just be patient. It might be a fit for later, right? When you get around to recording your next season.
And so you mentioned I know that's not convenient for authors because your book is out now and that's what you want to do. So I totally get that. But, and you may find someone who is in the recording process now and it works perfectly. But remember, it's in God's timing. He's going to make it work for you. So we just need to be patient.
Yeah, so true. And I know, we do get wrapped up around our book launch time. But as you know, as all of our listeners know, we're going to continue to keep on marketing that book as long as we want to reach new readers. So there's never necessarily a deadline on being a podcast guest. Hey, so real quick, you did mention Podmatch, and I have not used that before. I've heard of it, but can you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So again, there's a free version and a paid version. And we will be honest, I have a budget that mainly goes into the podcast to have my shows edited. So it's not like a great big budget. So I do try to find free versions when I can. The founder of this is a great person. So basically you sign up and you can register either as a guest or as a podcast host. So let's talk about the guest for a minute. So you're going to upload your photo, you're going to upload your bio, you are going to upload, there's a series of questions that they ask you. You kind of select topics that you think would be relevant to your book. He has an algorithm that it goes into try to matching you. So the main difference between the free and the paid is after you're up there and the algorithm begins to work, you're sent matches to, say, podcast hosts. And the free version, you are only sent so many matches, and then you have to wait 24 hours to get more matches or something like that. It could be maybe a little bit more than 24 hours. That's the difference between the paid and the free. But even with the free, you get matches, and then you can reach out to the podcast host they've matched you with. I would suggest before you just jump in and email, look at that person's profile, because they have taken some time to craft their profile to, so that you can see, is this a good match? Is my book, is my story a good match for this particular one? You can see what their topics are. You can see their demographic, their, target audience. And does this work for me? And if it is, then you send them an email through the app or through the website, and then they get back to you.
Okay. Okay. That sounds awesome. We'll definitely put a link to that in the show notes so everybody can check that out. Well, this has been so good, Yvette. I'm so thankful that you came on to serve my listeners. Can you tell everybody how they can connect with you afterwards?
Absolutely. So you can get everything through positivelyjoy.com. The book is on Amazon, but there's a link to the book on my books page on positivelyjoy.com. You authors, you might be interested in a book club that I've started this year. It's called the Bigger, Better Book Club. I've selected 12 books already, and it's a mixture of independent and kind of big time authors. Christian nonfiction, because frankly, I'm trying to learn a lot more this year. Why not? Why don't you come in along for the ride, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can sign up to be in the book club with us and get a lot of great reading on. And then you can find out, obviously, you can listen to the podcast on the website, on the listen page, or you can listen to the podcast Positively Joy on any streaming service.
Oh, that's awesome. Great. Well, I will definitely put links to all that in the show notes. And thank you again, Yvette, for coming on. We really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much, Kim. You're doing great work and I appreciate it. And everybody, good luck on your books.
Thank you. Y'all, I hope you got a lot of great tips from Yvette on finding joy in marketing your book. If this episode was helpful to you as an author, I would love for you to rate the show in your podcast player or write a review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser to help other authors discover the show. Thanks for tuning in today, and I'll see you in 2 weeks to help you market your book one podcast at a time.